Well, hello everybody and welcome back. So last week I put forward a video proposing that we should all think more strongly about using a form of training known as polarized training. But I still think that people, particularly triathletes, but cyclists as well and runners, are intent on making life way too complicated. Way too complicated. So I'd like to do something about that too. This is my proposal, which fits in line with the polarized training model, that we're only going to have 3 training zones, and this is how we're going to divide them up. If you look at a graph of intensity moving from left on your screen to right, 65% represents the intensity roughly where you start to get physiological benefits for sports performance. Below that, it's more about recovery. When you have a lactate test, and the scientists take blood samples and measure your lactate acid or lactic acid concentration in the blood, there are generally 2 breakpoints occurring roughly at 80% and 92%. The first one is called the first turn point, obviously, and then the second one is the second turn point. The first one is sometimes referred to as aerobic threshold. The second turn point is more commonly referred to as OBLA, onset of blood lactic acid, lactate threshold, anaerobic threshold. But let's call them first and second turn point. And if you made a graph of your lactic acid concentrations, it would look something like this. Now that's just a sample. There's a significant turn point at somewhere around 80%, then it goes up for a bit, might even settle down there in steady state activity, and then it increases rapidly around 92%. Athletes are comfortable training mostly in this zone, possibly because that is the sweet spot where a lot of physiological gains can occur, and more probably perhaps because it's the area of intensity where most activities that runners and triathletes do and cyclists is likely to take place. So you can see there, look, marathon, half, Ironman, standard, sprint distance, all between the 2 break points. 10k and 25 mile time trials slightly above, 5k and 3k up near a maximum effort. In polarized, athletes like to train in that middle zone. However, with the polarized training method, we are just going to continue with 3 zones, and we're going to suggest that you spend a majority of your time in this green zone here, the aerobic zone, where the benefits are that you improve the body's ability to burn fat, that you develop more mitochondria, which are little fuel production units within the muscle cells, and also that you develop more capillaries, which is great for transporting blood to the muscles. Okay, so lots of benefits there. Unfortunately, it feels quite easy sometimes, particularly closer to 65%. And athletes often feel guilty about being in this zone. They think they could go harder. And if you are chatting away easily or breathing through your nose, again, that would give you the impression that you could be doing things a little harder, and surely this isn't hard enough for me to find any benefit whatsoever. Now, the opposite end of the spectrum in polarized training is to be training in this red zone, and it's the red colour for a very good reason. You're developing VO2 max properties. You're not necessarily going to improve that VO2 max number, but you will improve your ability to reach it, to spend more time there. But perhaps for endurance athletes, one of the key benefits is that you can develop your economy. Training at intensities like this can often feel quite ragged, but when you come back down into sweet spot intensity for your races, you'll feel so in control that you will understand why it's important to get into that red zone on a regular basis. The reason people don't is because it is the hurt locker. It's going to be quite painful. You'll quite often feel sick if you're doing the training properly. You'll see red mist and stars perhaps, and you will quite understandably be thinking, this is way too hard for me. In fact, it's probably going to do me more harm than good. So, thinking you could go harder or thinking it's too hard results in athletes spending more time in this middle zone, the area between the 2 thresholds, sometimes referred to by coaches and scientists as the black hole, because maybe you can disappear in here and never come out. You just go round and round, not making any progress. Mentally, it's a comfort zone. The training is not comfortable, but you feel comfortable mentally because this is the area where you feel like you're going to be racing, and therefore it must be doing you the most good. And if you haven't got any measurement devices like power meters or heart rate monitors, then hard air breathing, talking in short sentences, but definitely not going in across the second turn point there where talking becomes almost impossible. So as you can see, we want you to try and stay out of the black zone and spend more time in the green zone. In fact, 80% of your time in the green zone. That doesn't mean you have to be at 65%. Maybe that's the zone you're at for your longer sessions, and closer to 80% for your shorter sessions. But anywhere in that range will give you good aerobic endurance benefits. And sometimes if you work higher up to 80%, you're not getting any more than you are at 65%. It's a bit like working overtime without getting paid for it, and nobody would do that, would they? On the other end of the spectrum, 5 to 10% of your time in the hurt locker. That's the total time spent in the high intensity zone, not the length of your training session. So if you're doing 10 hours of training a week, 10% would be 60 minutes. That's 3 20-minute sessions a week. And that 20 minutes for a session will be totaled up as, say, 10 times 2-minute intervals, or 20 times 1 minute, however you like. And remember, we're not trying to develop the VO2 max, so it doesn't matter if you get a bit longer to recover. We're trying to develop economy of movement at this level and the comfort with moving at VO2 max velocity. So those good mathematicians among you will have realised that that's 85 to 90%. There is an outstanding 10 to 15%. That's what you should spend in the sweet spot, and you can do this accidentally. Particularly if you live where I do, you are going to be going uphill and your intensity will naturally progress upwards across the first turn point and into the sweet spot zone. So you don't need to do any planned sessions here. Now that doesn't mean that we won't be doing any planned sessions, but it's just not going to be planned at this time of year. That will come nearer to the race season, when I think, from experience, and scientists seem to think as well, that you can make bigger gains with a specific block of training of 6 to 8 weeks long, devoted to really developing the sweet spot. So that's it. Try and spend more time in the green zone feeling guilty. Try and feel sick a bit more often if you can. See the red mist and get into the hurt locker. And if you're spending more time in the green zone, you definitely won't be as fatigued, so therefore the red zone stuff will be easier to accomplish. I'm not saying it's easy training, but it will be easier to get through because you'll be fresh. There's nothing worse than trying to attempt this when you're feeling tired and then just accidentally get into that black hole zone. You may end up in there if you do cross-country running, but try not to spend too much time in there through the winter. Okay, I hope that's clear. Keep it nice and simple. 3 zones only: easy, medium and hard, green, black and red, and stay out the sweet spot, and that'll be great. And in my next 2 or 3 videos I will be giving you some specific sessions for swim, bike and run that will help you to make your training more polarised. So until then, thanks for listening. I'll see you again in a few days' time. Bye for now.